Brittany Maynard, she chose to get married. She chose to take trips all around the world. And after being diagnosed with terminal brain cancer at the age of 29, Brittany chooses to die. Just after she was married last year, Brittany began experiencing these debilitating headaches. Doctors eventually telling her she had 6 painful months left. So Brittany took her life and is taking her death in her own hands.
Both euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide have been around since the early 14th and 15th centuries. They were both first practiced by members of early Catholic churches at the time, who were diagnosed with terminal illnesses. The word euthanasia results from the two Greek words, eu meaning good, and thanatosis meaning death. This represents the painless death that the practice performs. As seen around us in our world today, both euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide spark a great deal of controversy. Understanding the difference between these two is a vital piece to understanding these heated and controversial debates of this matter.
Let me first of all tell you what they are. Euthanasia is when a person is very weak and I come and I give them a lethal injection and I literally kill the person. Usually it's given at the end of life when people are weak or they have a poor quality of life. Somebody comes and gives them an injection and actually kills them. That's what Jack Kevorkian was doing in Michigan. He was giving them potassium injections and stopping their hearts. That's euthanasia. Physician-assisted suicide is where a person is not that weak and I can help them to commit suicide. So I can go to them and say, here's a bottle of pills, take those and that'll kill you. Or what Jack Kevorkian was doing was setting up the needle for the person, and then the person literally pressed the button and the needle went in and said this was physician-assisted suicide because the person was doing the final action.
So in hindsight, euthanasia is direct, or in some cases legal murder, and PAS is when a physician assists someone in committing suicide.
From a federal standpoint, it's not legal in the United States. It is legal in other countries, 5 or 6 countries around the world. I think the Netherlands. I think it's legal in Belgium. It's legal in Canada in some way, shape, or form, and in 2 or 3 other countries, I think, as well. Even though in the United States it's not considered federally legal, the federal government doesn't prohibit states from making laws or rules about euthanasia.
Looking at a graph of the data, Oregon in particular, which as according to the Journal of Palliative Medicine, is the leading state in euthanized and PAS victims, we can clearly see how the trend of the graph works its way upwards. As the practices become more familiarized throughout the country, more patients suffering these terminal illnesses are undergoing these processes.
Impact on a family would revolve more around their relationship with the patient. The issue, I think, afterwards would be regret And I think family members who agreed to assist or to take part in a euthanasia, I would imagine that they would have not only regret, but they'd be worried they would second guess later their decision.
When terminally ill people are faced with this do or die scenario of their life, and they have to make the choice to either live a few more months in pain, knowing they will be dying, or to just end their life now via this painless lethal injection, they find it quite hard to come to a clean-cut decision. This is the human life we're talking about here. Nothing in this world holds more power than the individual. The problem with euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide laws today is the people making this decision of, do I die now, or do I die later, aren't necessarily taking into consideration fully their pros versus their cons. Generally, when people find out that they have X amount of days left to live and the doctor tells them those are going to be painful days, they just want to end their life then and there to avoid the pain and suffering. The debate also then arises when people who are diagnosed with terminal illnesses are living 5 or maybe even 10 years after their expected death date. Then the question is brought to the table of, will these people who have terminal illnesses actually die? The most effective way to address and tackle this issue is by requiring those who are determining either the fate of themselves or the fate of another person in the cases where the terminally ill individual isn't physically able to go through a therapy course in which they sit down with a professional to effectively weigh the pros and cons of either PAS or euthanasia. This will allow the people making the decision for someone else or members of the patient's family to truly make the best decision possible for the situation that they are in, so that they don't have to experience a great deal of regret or remorse later on for making the wrong decision. And similarly, this therapy course would also allow the patient being put down to experience the same process and effectively come to a conclusion on if ending their life was the best option for them. Without this course, terminally ill individuals who might have a shot at living longer than anticipated won't be given the chance to effectively decide whether or not euthanasia or PAS is the right choice.